and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. Sleep.
And I'm Matt Freeman. Now, please don't move while I inject this podcast into your brain.
This might not be our podcast, but another podcast that we've substituted for this podcast to test for souls or something.
Souls in individuality.
There we go.
Yeah.
This week on the show, it is another one of our Council of Doof episodes.
Yep. Once a month, those episodes that donate to us on Patreon at the Council of Doof level will get to collectively decide on a movie for the community to consider for entrance into the Doof canon. Scott and I, and maybe some guests, will meet, talk about the movie, and then present our case for why it should or should not be admitted.
But as always, we're leaving the final decision up to you folks at home. So stick around, listen to our arguments, and then find a link in the show notes to go cast your vote. Matt, what has the council brought for all of us today?
This week, the council has put forth the 1998 film Dark City.
Ooh,
Yes.
Dark City.
Dark City.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing a full spoilers review of the film Dark City, and then we'll be deciding at the very end how we are going to vote. We'll turn it over to you guys to vote, and then we're going to wrap our episode up. First, we have to do our round 2 selections for our Doof Madness 64 movie tournament that we're putting on this week, and then the whole episode is going to wrap up with you and me talking about how we felt about the season finale of WandaVision and about the season as a whole. That's a pretty stuffed episode, but I think it's going to be a good one.
Me too.
All right, Matt, let's get right in to Dark City. Matt, what is Dark City about?
A man struggles with memories of his past, which include a wife he cannot remember and a nightmarish world no one else ever seems to wake up from.
Oh boy, this movie was written and directed by Alex Proyas, who also directed The Crow and the smash late 2010s movie Gods of Egypt. So he's doing great. This is a really important movie, right? I mean, it is commonly, I think there's a reason why the council has brought it to us. This is a very well-known movie. This is a movie that we have to talk about The Matrix when we talk about this movie. But I want to start this conversation off by saying that this is a movie that I had never seen before I watched it for this episode.
I had seen, so here's the funny thing is like, I'm 100% sure I've seen this, but when I was watching it, I was like, I remember like one shot out of this movie. It's entirely possible I tried to watch it like in high school, and then we just were like, I don't understand what's happening, and we stopped watching it, and we just didn't finish it, and that's why I don't remember it. But yeah, it's clearly it's one of those influential movies.
Yes.
I mean, you just mentioned the Matrix thing, so there's this whole discourse where people are like, this was a very influential movie, and the Matrix was influenced by this movie, and so forth, and maybe that's true. The Matrix came out like a year after this movie.
Yeah, I think people that say that don't quite understand how long it takes to make movies.
Correct.
Like it's very possible that like, both The Matrix and Dark City were plumbing from a common theme and imagery, and like Dark City is a movie that it became very obvious to me very quickly was very interested in like picking and choosing from bits of film history, right? Like this is a very noir movie. I don't know a lot about German Impressionism, but this movie feels like what German Impressionism is to me. Mm-hmm. It just feels that way. So it's doing a lot of things, and it's picking a lot of imagery from other movies. And there's moments where I can tell this is borrowing imagery from some other movies that I haven't even seen. I don't know what that thing is, but I can just tell this feels like an important pluck from film history. So
certain things kind of feel like Hellraiser influenced maybe. And
yeah, definitely.
It's very, I think that's, so I give it points for attempted creativity, and I give it points for visual coherence. Mm-hmm. Very, very cool sort of driving vision behind the whole thing. I just have to say, like, The Matrix is like perhaps the best movie ever made. So like comparing the two always just makes me like, you sure? You really? Like this is a very beautiful looking movie in its sort of dark, sort of noir gothic slant, but like it doesn't hit me anywhere near on the level the Matrix does. But that's not a criticism. That's just like come on, it's not the
Yeah,
Matrix.
I mean, saying it's not as good as the Matrix, like
Right.
you could say that about 5,000 movies.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, no, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. There are things about it that definitely annoyed me, and I think we're going to talk about some of those. But yeah, it is one of those experiences that you can tell while you're watching something that it's important, and you can tell while you're watching something that this was the wrong movie to watch with your wife because she was so utterly uninterested in everything that was going on here.
Uh-huh.
The second Keith Sutherland opened his mouth, she's like, "Nope, I don't want to do this anymore."
Uh-huh.
And I can't really even fault her for that. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a movie with a lot on its mind, and it is a movie that I thought was okay when I walked away from it, and then the more I've thought about it, kind of the more I liked. I'm very torn on this one, though. I think this is a movie that, like, had this been my fifth revisit, had I watched this in the 90s when it came out, and that had I revisited throughout my life, and then I came back to it for this thing, I might feel much more strongly about it. But this is one of those ones where I'm glad that you and I are not the sole arbiters of the decision on this vote, because I'm going to vote at the end of this thing, but I don't feel qualified to make a conclusive vote on this thing. So I'm very glad that we are farming this out to our listeners and making them, weigh in on the decision, because I just I yes or no. And honestly, at the beginning of this conversation, I am undecided, and I'm going to use our talk to kind of convince myself. Yes or no, I still feel like it's the lowest knowledge yes or no possible, and so I want everyone else to weigh in. Please, yeah. Everyone vote on this one.
I mean, I'll just say maybe we can almost structure the conversation this way. I'm leaning no, largely because I just didn't enjoy it very much.
Yeah,
yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I totally acknowledge, like, innovative, creative, very interesting in parts, but like also very boring in a lot of parts. The whole thing is, I don't want to say ruined, but very much negatively influenced by like the stupid voiceover at the beginning.
Yeah.
Which ruins the mystery. For those who might not have watched it, there's a voiceover at the beginning of the movie that just, it's as if you begin the Matrix with just, sorry, this was your analogy that I'm stealing. But it's as if you were to begin the Matrix with Morpheus just being like, voiceover, the Matrix is a computer simulation that everyone is plugged into.
Yeah. And I mean, full disclosure on this, this is not something Alex Proyas, the director, wanted to do. This is something New Line Cinema forced on him and made him add to the beginning of a movie. This Kiefer Sutherland basically explaining the entire mystery of the movie. And like, while I can sit here and recognize that that's not his fault, and I'm not going to put the blame on him. If you're asking me, does this negatively affect my experience with the movie? The answer is 100%, because the rest of the movie unfolds as if we don't understand these things and we don't know what's going on. And we do. I mean, we know they're aliens right away. We know Kiefer Sutherland is working with them right away. And so even from the opening bit where he wakes up in the tub, I mean, the only part of the mystery that it didn't quite solve is the why of what they're doing, right?
Uh-huh.
And the full scope of it, that we're on this rock floating in space, that they're not even on Earth anymore. That reveal still works very well, I think.
Yeah, that was a cool moment.
But yeah, I mean, so much of the sharpness of the twists and turns and shocking reveals of this thing is absolutely dampened by that stupid damn voiceover.
Yeah,
it's like the, at least the terrible Blade Runner voiceover like didn't completely ruin the film, you know.
I'm sort of fond of the Blade Runner voiceover in some ways. Again, like you said, it doesn't ruin the structure of the film.
Yeah, and another thing we need to say here is that in 2008, Proyas did release a director's cut version of his movie. We did not watch that one, mostly because I didn't know that it existed. I just punched Dark City into my stream player and rented the first one that came up. I might have done that. So I mean, look, on the vote, it didn't say Dark City director's cut, right? So technically, we watched the one we were supposed to watch. But yeah, I mean, that it was an incredibly stupid decision, and I hate it. I hate it so much. Like the thing is to play devil's advocate for $1 billion company for a moment. I kind of understand their desire to do that because so much of this movie, like this movie feels like a movie that is kind of constantly stopping to look at you and be like, are you getting it? Do you understand? Like, because a lot of this movie is characters just expositing the complexities of what's happening to each other. And that's because this plot is very complex. I think Proyas is trying to do something very complicated to build this metaphor of talking about, you know, self and what is it, how do you define yourself, and what part of yourself is your memories and what part of yourself is some innate ununderstandable thing, and how can you, you know, grapple with that and take control and redefine what your existence is these wonderful ideas, and he's construct this fascinating world to kind of let these ideas play out. But in order to get to where you understand the metaphor, you need a lot of this explained to you. You really do. And I think I wished the movie explained it in action a little bit more.
Yeah. Or just organized it better. I mean, unfortunately, this is the thing. When the culture has decided that I'm supposed to compare this movie with The Matrix, I'm going to compare it with The Matrix. And
sure,
the thing The Matrix does is it segments things intelligently, where the beginning of The Matrix, you are intrigued. You don't know what's going on. You really want to understand what's going on. It's weird and bizarre. Weird things are happening. It gets super, super weird when he wakes up in the power plant. And then it's all explained. It's all explained in a big explanation scene. And then we move on with the plot, right? In this movie, it's like there's not that scene. There's not that scene where, you know, we don't go from a state of sort of excited interest and like, oh, what's this? What's happening here? Who's this guy? And then you know, culminate in a scene of, okay, now your questions will be answered. It's just sort of this like slapdash mix of different scenes where information is kind of dribbled out to you, and you don't really like care about the character very much either, and so you're not really that interested in what happens to him for a long time. Maybe he's a serial killer, you're not sure. So yeah, there's just a lot of structural like failure to kind of propel you properly and make you interested in the mysteries properly.
I mean, how much of that do you think is that opening? Because I do actually think that our introduction to John Murdoch is pretty interesting. Like the wake up in a bathtub, have no idea who you are moment, I think works really well, right? And like running out into the street and there's a dead body. Like, I mean, that is such a classic noir. Like you wake up in a hotel room and there's a dead girl on the bed. It's really playing into the noir, and then the cops are after you. You can't remember who you are. I think one of the interesting things about this movie to me is I think Proyas edits it like very hapdash. I think I read somewhere that this is one of the most like cuts per minute movies in the history of film. That he just cuts a lot. He just cuts a whole lot. And I think like that there's a reason for that, right? And I think, you know, on the micro level, he's doing that to kind of build this feeling of confusion around the place. And I think on the macro level, it's also done where the structure just doesn't. It just kind of jumps around a lot. So
yeah.
It just like things don't connect, like the scenes don't flow to each other very well. Like at the very beginning, like we open up with John Murdoch and he's trying to figure out, and then we cut over to Jennifer Connelly singing in the bar, and we have no idea who this woman is at this point. Like the cuts are very abrupt, the scene transitions are very abrupt and confusing, and I think that's intentional. Like that, I think that's part of the design of the movie. I do think one result of that is it is a little bit harder to get your emotional hooks into the characters, especially our main character.
Yeah, I think I was at this point, I'm always sort of like metacognitively aware of what I'm thinking as I'm watching a movie, because that's what having this project has done to me.
Sure.
And so like as we're sort of in the middle of what you would call, I guess, first or second act, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm really not attaching to any of these characters and I'm really not getting invested. And then I was like, okay, but you probably are you probably are going to get interested as soon as the actual plot starts moving. And then that actually did happen. But and then I was like, okay, so what happened here is we jumped around between too many characters without actually really getting to know any of them, and I didn't care about any of them. But then as soon as like stuff started happening, then I got kind of engaged with the story. Like I think about the time that is it William Hurt? Is that his name?
The inspector.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as William Hurt entered the story, I for some reason got suddenly way more invested.
Well, because he just slots perfectly into this movie because
Yeah.
he's the noir detective, right? Like he just fits, he just slips perfectly in, and William Hurt's having a great time with this role. You can tell.
Yeah. He's doing a great job. He kind of gave me something to anchor on, I think. Like, okay, there's the detective here. He's trying to figure it out. I get it. I get what's happening. I get what we're doing now. And then I was kind of okay, actually.
Yeah, part of me, I don't know how much I want to commit to this, but part of me wonders if I would have liked the movie better if it's his movie. If you give the movie to the inspector and have him trying to figure this stuff out, and we're in his point of view for most of it instead of just a bit of it.
Yeah, maybe, but at least make him more of the guy we're following around than the guy who we are following around, Rufus Sewell, who just he's fine. He's
can we? I mean, yeah, like I Rufus Sewell is an actor that I've quite enjoyed in the roles he's had in the past. He's the bad guy in A Knight's Tale. You know, he here's what I'll say about him: he's good at being an antagonist or being a character actor. I don't think he's leading man material, and I think his performance drags the movie down. I really do.
Yeah.
I think he just, well, I mean, and it's an interesting kind of dilemma, right? Because Murdoch is kind of by design supposed to be an everyman, right? Like he's not supposed to have anything you can clutch onto as like a character trait, because he's supposed to be this tabula rasa.
Yeah.
Rasa. And I think Sewell pulls that off, but it still has to have this creeping emotion behind it, because a lot of what this movie is like, how much of you is your soul, right? So like you can swap someone's memory around. You can put the memory of a murderer onto a person. Will that person become a murderer? I think what this movie says is no, they won't, because there is a piece of them, a part of them that is innate to them that goes beyond their lived experiences. And I think it's that part of him that Rufus Sewell just, in my opinion, just didn't quite bring out.
Yeah.
And I don't think he has the charisma for it. I didn't enjoy him in this role.
Right. I mean, if your theme is the idea that there is something intrinsic to you beyond your memories and your life story that is the true soul, the true core of your being, then you definitely want an actor who has like a deep well of you know, kind of empathy overflowing out of them, that you just can't help but like feel connected to them and feel their struggles and all of that.
Yeah.
And he's not the right guy for this.
By the way, I mean, just to be fair, I love Keanu Reeves. I don't think Keanu Reeves would be the right guy for this either. I don't think he would have worked in that role either.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid making too many Matrix comparisons, because I was about to make another one on a different topic. But yeah, I mean, Keanu works really well as Neo. But I actually agree. This is not this role. Like, that character should have been freaking out, right?
Yeah.
The John Murdoch character, he should have been freaking out and having a breakdown the whole movie, not being stoic. William Hurt's detective character could have been the stoic guy who has depth under the surface, which is indeed what William Hurt does.
Yeah.
But no, it's not. It's all just slightly wrong. Okay, the other comparison I was going to make to the Matrix, just to get out of the way, because I'm really trying not to, because it's like, it's not fair. It's not a fair way of talking about art to be like, well, it's not this other thing that's amazing. But I was going to say, like, Agent Smith is one of the best movie villains of all time.
Sure.
Partly the concept, partly the execution, and of course in this movie we have these aliens who are like, aliens possessing dead bodies, which is a cool, creepy concept, but they're such just like cackling evil like monsters. There's no real sense of pathos. There's very little anyway. The one of them who ends up getting memories, there is some internality to him, but then he just turns into like a monster, and you're just like, okay. I mean, I don't care about them. I'm not interested in them. They're not especially when you're thinking about Agent Smith as sort of the point of comparison of like they're sort of serving the same role where they're like the jailers of this artificial world. But Agent Smith is this complicated character where like he's angry, right? He gets angry that they're thwarting him, whereas these guys are just always like either emotionless or like, you know, sinister in that sort of Dracula way that is not really realistic.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Hand is definitely the Agent Smith of this movie. Right. I mean, like you can see why everyone like that went and saw this movie and then a year later saw The Matrix was like, hey, wait a minute. Like, I'm not saying that they don't parallel each other in interesting ways. It's just like there's no way the Wachowski sisters could have watched that movie, written and created The Matrix in the time between the release of the two movies. There's no way. No. But yeah, I mean, I think I liked Mr. Hand a little bit more than you did. I thought his experience, it was interesting, and I think it does kind of demonstrate this idea that, you know, you feed him all the memories that Murdoch was supposed to have, and like he is him in a superficial way,
right?
But he's not. There's something not quite there, and I think, by the way, I think I am kind of oversimplifying the message of this movie and saying that just, oh, there's a soul and that's something. Like I do think a lot of what the movie is saying is, okay, yes, there might be a soul and these memories might be implanted, but so what? Like, I mean, I think the ending where he just creates the place that he remembers, right? Is kind of this, in my opinion, this beautiful message of like, I think the realization, the first realization you have when they bust a hole in the wall and you realize, oh my God, they're just on a rock in the middle of space. And then you go, so are we. and like, we are these people that were put on this rock in the middle of space. We're given memories of a time, like you and me have memories of this time before that were put into us, you know, not artificially by a machine, but via experiences and mostly controlled by our parents. And we have to decide, you know, at some point to take control of the world that we live in and take control of and define who we are and decide if we're going to push away those memories, reject those memories, or embrace those memories and build the world we want to see in the image of those memories. And that's a really beautiful, powerful message that I adore. I love what this movie is saying and the things it's exploring. I really love it.
Sure. Like, I think you're right that these ideas are all floating somewhere in this great pot of gumbo, but they're pretty thin. They're pretty thin in the gumbo. And I just don't know, like everything you just said is a great sort of critical analysis of the thing, but I didn't get any of that, honestly.
That's
like
fair.
I basically just we're being asked to consider the nature of what makes you. Is it your memories, or is it something deeper and more ineffable? Mm-hmm. And yes, there are interesting ideas, like, you know, the fact that he's probably never met Jennifer Connelly's character before, but having had these experiences with her, he sort of maybe chooses to think that they do have something real between them because he has these fake memories, and it's like, well,
yeah. Well, and they find each other at the end, right?
And they find each other in the end, and maybe you're supposed to ask, like, what is a real relationship anyway? If you have shared memories, and you both and you like each other, or you're interested in each, like, that's the thing. I'm kind of like I don't know, man.
I mean, my problem with this thing we're talking about right now is, as we're talking about this idea of relationships and memories, all I can think of is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is a film that I thought did that same idea a lot better. I don't know, like that's why I'm so torn about this movie, man. I just the ideas are fascinating. They make me think. They make me wonder. So much of the movie like looks amazing. Like even in the moments before we started recording, I just had the movie on one window on my computer on mute as I was prepping for the thing, and just like had it's just gorgeous in its. It looks like Burton's Batman in some ways, right? Like
Yeah.
there's just the gothic mix with noir of the city, and I love the special effects of the pieces of the city growing and shrinking, and the way in which Proyas uses that to kind of I love the chase scene where like they're jumping on growing spires
Yeah.
to avoid each other. Like
Very
I
cool.
thought that
Yeah.
was all really cool.
Very cool visuals there. I love the way that your feeling evolves, where like at first you really just believe that you're. I mean, even with the voiceover, I think I just believed that they were like on Earth, and this
Yeah,
is just a city. And then eventually, he looks out the window and he's like, it's 11 o'clock a.m. or p.m.
yeah,
And you realize like, oh my god, it's literally never daytime here. And then you
yeah.
realize how like, oh, everyone here is like completely screwed up by what's happening.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it like I love the slow kind of realization of like, do you know where Shell Beach is? And everyone's like, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, how do I get there? And no one can answer the question. It's such a fun way of doing that reveal. I think one of the first times I realized it was like when the people were sitting down to dinner and the clock strikes midnight, and I'm like, wait a minute, wait a
Yeah.
minute, why are they eating dinner at midnight? What's going on here?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that stuff's really spectacularly done, and I will say I thought the fight at the end, I thought it was bad. Like I think the narrative of Kiefer Sutherland basically implanting him with memories of a lifetime of training, which again is very Matrix,
Uh-huh.
was really cool. I thought that was really cool, really clever. And we have to make sure we hit Kiefer Sutherland before we wrap up this conversation. But anyway, I thought that was really cool and clever. But then like the dramatic result of that is just Rufus Sewell and one of the aliens like do this head-to-head Dragon Ball Z fight.
Right.
Similar to, if we're gonna go with the Matrix comparison again, the Matrix Revolutions final fight, which I
Right.
felt was super disappointing in that movie as well.
Yeah.
Like this is the movie with grand ideas, and I just like this. It just kind of devolved into this action sequence that I had no real emotional stake in. Like at the point, in my opinion, at the point where Kiefer Sutherland is victorious, and then like you realize, oh, he's injected him with superpowers, basically. Like that, he won. That's it. Like the 15 minutes of action sequence following that just felt unnecessary to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was like, the moment when he smashes him into the water tower, I was like, okay, I feel like I'm supposed to think that was clever and built up to, because we know they're vulnerable to water, but I'm just like, okay, good. We're done with that now. Like, because yeah, you're right. At that point, you're just like, oh, I want to see what do they do now? How do they get out of this situation? How do they get out of this? What is the resolution going to be? How is he going to use his powers? And actually, that's pretty disappointing, because it's like I think of that as sort of a fun premise question of like, okay, now you've thrown off the shackles. What's the first thing you're going to do? And what he does is he makes like water, and then he makes a pier, and then he makes the sun, and you're like, okay, what does this mean? I don't know what this means.
That my interpretation was that it means he's choosing the memories. He's choosing to accept the memories regardless of whether they were his lived experience or not, right? Like
maybe I'm honestly confused. Like I don't know. I don't know. Like it's the ending of the Matrix. Neo says, I'm going to show them the truth. I'm going to show them, I'm going to show everyone that you've trapped in here the truth, and then I'm going to let them choose what they want, and we're going to see where we go from here. And that's not a resolution necessarily. That's a okay, you at least leave the theater knowing what the ending of the movie was. Whereas this, I'm just like, okay, so is he going to continue keeping everyone in this city as part of a fantasy that he's living out, or is he going to awaken them and show them that they were they're all on a spaceship basically. Like what are we doing now? I have no idea. I really have no idea.
I think people are just gonna live their lives, man. I think that's like they're in a world now that is this big city that it's date. I'm assuming he's gonna like flip the coin and make day and night, right? I don't know, but like um I think they're just going to live their lives, and they're on this rock hurtling through space, and he's made the world in the image of he's made his world, his reality in the image of these memories, a combination of who he is. I think you can say that the conclusion of the movie is we are a combination of this ineffable thing that you said and the memories that we have in our heads, whether those memories are real or not, because memories are shitty and unreliable, right? Like the things you remember didn't happen that way, but you remember them that way. And so it still helps define who you are. So I don't know, that was my take on it.
I mean, because also like Jennifer Connelly doesn't have any memories of him anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's still like, you want to go with me? Like, so it's like, oh, so like she is attracted to him in her soul. Yes. Even though she no longer has the memories.
Yes.
So it's not the memories, it's the soul. And this is where I'm like, okay, so is it the memories or the soul? What like the movie didn't land the thematic, like this is what we're saying about this.
I think it's both, man.
Okay.
And I think just like Jennifer Connelly is attracted to Rufus Sewell and her soul, I am attracted to Jennifer Connelly in my soul.
Uh-huh.
And so I loved every scene she was in.
Well, that makes two of us. I mean, yeah. So in conclusion, we're going to vote the movie in because Jennifer Connelly. Let's talk about Kiefer Sutherland before.
We'll wrap up with Kiefer Sutherland. Man, I don't know what he's doing here, and like I wonder how much of this was he's like, I got a great idea how to do this character, and how much of it was the director really wanting him to play the character this way.
Yeah.
Because I mean, on the one hand, I love the campiness of it. I really do. I think he's given it his all. On the other hand, the breathing, I just couldn't get over. And there are different lines, right? Like when he's relaying the information to Murdoch via the memories, he's not speaking with the breaths, and that drove me crazy. But he just looks so weird, and he's like Igor. And I don't know. I kind of loved it. I really did. Like I rolled my eyes at it the first time I saw it, and then the more he was on screen, the more I kind of liked it. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel. How do you feel?
I found it grating. The breathing part where every sentence and you're just like, okay, like this is giving me like an actual headache. But like other than that, it was good. Like it's kind of a weird thing to say. Like he had one really annoying thing about the performance that I just would have been like, please don't do that. But other than that, I thought it was functional. Like his is definitely like the biggest performance of the movie.
Yes. Yes.
And one can imagine a movie where he's a more central character, rather than the detective or the psychic guy. It's actually the collaborator who becomes his is an interesting concept. And I don't, this one thing is like maybe the movie has too many characters that it tries to explore, and it doesn't explore any of them completely.
This is probably my pro Jennifer Connelly bias, but I wish it explored her a little bit more. Yeah. She's kind of only seen in the lens of John Murdoch himself. Like she's not. We don't really get to see her as her own person, really. She's really just kind of there to move the plot along. And I mean, I think maybe we didn't need the inspector. We just talked about how maybe the movie should have been more about Inspector Bomstead, but maybe we didn't need him. I feel like sometimes we're like, well, it's a noir thing. We got to put the detective character in there. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think it needed to be more focused, and who it chose to focus on is, I'm agnostic. I think there was something interesting going on with each of them, but I don't feel like we fully explored any of them. So
yeah, I think the biggest problem with Kiefer Sutherland's performance for me, despite loving the camp, is I think he has a very powerful emotional arc in which he helped out the bad guys for years.
Yeah,
and we get to see him get to a point where he's brave enough or comes to realize his mistake enough that he chooses to reverse that decision. And because he's so fucking goofy, the emotion of that choice didn't work on me.
Yeah, I feel similar. I think one moment that did work was when it's almost played as a reveal. I think it is sort of a reveal when he's like, they made me erase everything about myself except for my professional skills as a psychiatrist or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it shows that, and you're like, oh, like that, like suddenly you realize he's a much more tragic figure. Like he's a shell of a person, who, you know, like the reason why he's so screwed up is because they made him do this to himself, and it's actually sad. Like that actually felt successfully tragic to me.
It did. You're right. You're right. I need to give him more credit. I think you're right there. And I mean, the tragedy of like being, he's the only one, like he has to erase his own life and also has to live knowing he erased his own life, because the need they have of him is that they get rid of all that superfluous stuff, but he knows that he got rid of all that superfluous stuff, and how that must be a nightmare. Like, like it's one thing to wake up every day as a different person and not know it. And there's certainly a horror there, especially if you believe in the soul. There's another to like know that you don't know things. You know, most of these people are happily ignorant, except when the process goes wrong and they wake up again, kind of like the Matrix. But he has to live in like purgatory constantly, and it's awful.
Yeah. I mean, like that's yet again. I mean, his character has seemingly the most obvious depth, and it's
yeah. So okay, we're here at the end of this conversation, Matt, and now we have to do the thing that I've been dreading, which is we have to decide how we're going to vote on this. And I'm wondering, you said you were leaning towards no at the beginning of the conversation. What where are you at now?
I was just kind of hoping that as we talked about it, it would it would unlock itself to me, and I would see something really fantastic that I could really love about it. But I mean, beyond sort of abstractly appreciating it aesthetically and as a, you know, giving it visual style points and giving it creativity points, that's not enough for a council vote for me personally. That's just like, yeah, it's a good movie, and people should, you know, probably get around to watching it someday. But if you don't get around to watching it, there's all these other movies that are better. So I think I'm still leaning no on it.
Okay. Oh boy. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Like I was just, as you were talking, I was like, ooh, is this going to be one where Matt and I split? I think I could literally go either way. I could, and I'd be totally content with it.
Because we do like putting weird stuff on the Doof canon. Like that's sort of, it's kind of the point of it, sort of. I just don't know. I don't know, man. This movie just didn't move me. Like I can't. We talk a lot about criticism on the meta level, and like at a certain point, I can talk in detail about all of the elements of structure that didn't work, and all the elements of character that didn't work, and all the elements where the theme didn't quite come together for me. And the sum of that is that the movie just didn't really move me, didn't really work for me, and I nothing that we said here changed that. So pretty decisively no, honestly, for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to vote no too, but I think I'm a lot closer than you. I think I enjoyed this movie a lot more than you. I think I can get by on loving it for the technical aspects. I can get by on loving it for, you know, the interpretation that I took out of it, whether or not that's a stretch of the text or not. I think it kind of is. There are too many things I don't like about the movie, and we could be having an entirely different conversation had we watched the director's cut. I don't know. I do think that intro is just it. Like I joked about this before we started recording, but that almost makes me want to vote no by itself. Like just like I think that cuts the legs of the movie off before it's even started the race, and I wish I could delete that from my head, but it's part of the movie, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I'm going to vote no. It's really close though. It's really close for me. And this is one of those ones, like sometimes we have movies like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Mad Max Fury Road and Spider-Verse where I'm like, yeah, this is going to win. This is one where I legitimately don't know. And I'm really, really interested to see which way this one goes, because I would be totally fine with it going either way. But I can't, I would not put money on the prediction of this vote.
Yeah, and I'd love to see people talk about it, and
Yes.
those who vote for it, give us a good pitch, because I mean, like I get the historical significance, and I get the heady themes that it's going for.
Mhm.
So it's not like I'm like I don't understand how someone could like this movie. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like there's some single like cog in the machine of the movie that is missing for me, and if someone could maybe, especially if you like know how I think, which you probably do after listening to me for some time, then just help me find that cog.
Would you say that despite all the memories of you watching this movie, there's some ineffable lacking quality that makes it so it just doesn't connect for you?
It's like a splinter in my mind, Scott.
Okay, so that's 2 no's. We don't do that very often, but I feel like that's the right decision. It makes me sad in this case. Like sometimes there are things on here where I voted no and was like, yeah, no. This is one that makes me sad because I want it to be a yes. It felt wrong as I like thought in my head about what I would say after I said the word yes. It just didn't quite feel right.
I guess maybe I would just say, final comment, I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
No, not at all.
I'm just saying I don't think it belongs on my vision of what the Doof canon is. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that's our vote. Now it is time for you folks out there to vote. You will find a link in the show notes of this episode where you can go to our Patreon account. You do not have to have a Patreon account to vote in this, but you can click yes or no there. I think we're going to do something a little bit different this time, Matt, where I think I'm also going to throw up a Twitter poll and we'll just add those together. And
cool.
The most votes wins. And we'll come back next week and say what the results are and hopefully get some feedback from you folks, because this is one of those ones where seriously, I want feedback. If you are one of those people that adores this movie, that loves this movie, that has watched this movie a bunch of times and has a ton to say about it, we want to hear about it. I do. Like, this is a first time watch for me. It's not a movie I have a lot of experience and a lot of memory of, which is perfect. So yeah, let us know. Send us an email at doofmedia@gmail.com or on Twitter @doofmedia, or head over to our Reddit account, reddit.com/r/doofmedia. Find the topic of this week's episode and let us know why you love Dark City so much, or why you don't.
All right.
Doof. All right, Matt. Next on our agenda this week, we have to talk about some madness. Matt,
right.
We have the results of round 1, and we have to pick our 16 movies in our round 2 matchups. I think we're going to go through round 1 very, very fast because there's 32 matchups here, Matt, and we already talked about our picks last week, and we just need to say who won.
Okay.
So I'm going to start us off with our biggest landslides here. At 98 to 2%, Mad Max Fury Road crushed Meet the Feebles. 2% of people still voted for Meet the Feebles, though. So, hey.
Wow. Okay.
We also have another 98 to 2%, The Princess Bride, executed Breaker Morant. Another 98 to 2%, The Matrix. It just deleted Mimic.
Oh my god!
Which,
wow.
I mean, 2% of people voted for Mimic there. Yeah, so hey, Mimic's got some fans.
I guess we know what the Lizard Man constant is for our polls. Are you familiar with what that is?
No.
It's where like if you put the option in polls to be like if you're doing a political poll and there's an option that's like none of the above because lizard men run everything, actually, then there's a certain percentage of people who will vote for that, just either because they're crazy or to be contrary or whatever. And so the lizard man's constant is just like the number of people who will just screw with your polls. It's apparently 2% for us. So
2%. All right. Maybe they just really liked that movie, Matt. Maybe you shouldn't be so judgmental.
You know what? Maybe.
Our next highest one's at 96%. Pan's Labyrinth beats Kronos. The better Guillermo del Toro movie wins in that one. So I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's right. We have The Prestige knocking out Jupiter Ascending 90% to 10%.
Okay.
We have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse taking out The Lives of Others, which got 8% of the vote to Spider-Man's 92%. So 8% for The Lives of Others. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Snowpiercer beats Shyamalan's After Earth 93 to 7%.
Okay.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit takes down Doubt 91 to 9%.
Oh, okay. I guess I thought that one might be closer, but sure.
Yeah, I did a little bit. And Starship Troopers beats Bound 87 to 13%. Then we have Edge of Tomorrow saying goodbye to The Happening, but The Happening got 13%. That's pretty good.
Wow.
That's 13%.
That's something. That's something.
That's no lizard people, Matt. That's just some people that enjoyed The Happening, like me.
You're right. That's a real number of people who actually clicked that button to vote that movie over Edge of Tomorrow. Okay.
Signs beats Lady in the Water 81 to 19%. Fight Club beats Super Mario Brothers 82 to 18% of people. I take back all the nice things I said about people.
I love it. I'm so happy.
Seven beats Brazil 86 to 14%. And here we have The Sixth Sense beating Pitch Black 71 to 29%. Here's technically an upset. The Village takes down Redline 65 to 35%.
Okay.
That was a little surprising.
Yeah. I'm happy Shyamalan got some love.
Yeah. The Fifth Element takes down The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo 71 to 29%. The Mist takes out Hunt for the Wilder People 68 to 32%.
Okay. It's nice.
Chronicles of Riddick upsets Alien 3 with a 60% because of you, Matt.
Wow. No, because of Daniel. You've got to give Daniel the credit. He made the sales pitch. So I'll tell Daniel. He'll be very happy.
Okay. Primer beats The Game 60 to 40%. Gone Girl beats Your Name. So there's one of our anime movies is out. Your Name goes down to Gone Girl. Akira does go on, though, so that we still have one anime in it, 63 to 37%. Zodiac beats Blade 63 to 37% as well. And let's see what else we got here. The Social Network gets to 69%. Nice. Beats Hellboy 2. Hellboy beats The Matrix Reloaded. That seems fair. And then we get into the really, really close ones here, Matt. So here's some in the 50s. We have Us taking on The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Us won, but it was 58 to 42%. That surprised me a little bit.
Wow, interesting.
A lot of people like Benjamin Button.
Yeah.
We have this one here that just breaks my poor heart. We have Glass beating Speed Racer 52 to 48%.
Oh, so close.
I think that was the closest one in this matchup. It was a pretty big upset. Glass, the 11th seed, Speed Racer, the 6th seed. So 6th seed Speed Racer goes down, and it breaks my heart.
I'm so sorry, Scott.
It's okay. Also, we have Split versus Stardust. Stardust wins 52 to 48%.
Wow.
So Split goes down. And I think that's everything. I probably missed some, but those are the big ones.
Just in general, it's interesting how in some cases I was like, wow, I didn't think that would be such a landslide. And then in some cases I was like, wow, I didn't think that would be so close.
Yeah. I guess the big news is our 1 through 4 seeds in all 4 of our brackets went on. So the top 4 in each region all moved on. So there were no big upsets this round. There were some upsets in the 5 to 8s, but nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Okay.
I think the highest seed to go on is an 11. So an 11 seed made it to round 2, and that's the highest one.
Gotcha. Okay.
So which is to say that my seeding is decent, not perfect, but I have. It's not like my number ones went down in the first round or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe your personal love of Speed Racer led you to give it a high seed.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I just really felt that like the tide has turned on that movie a lot. Most people seem to really like it now, so I think it just hasn't turned enough to be a 6 seed.
Yeah,
so
we'll try again next year.
Yeah. All right, so let's move into round 2, though. There are 32 movies going up in 16 matchups that we have to vote on right now to see who gets into our sweet, sweet 16. So let's go ahead and do it, Matt.
All right.
Here we go. This is going to be hard. And our very first matchup of the night is called Heavy Metal. This is Mad Max Fury Road versus Pacific Rim. Mad Max, of course, our number 1 seed. How are you going to do this one, Matt?
I'm going with Mad Max. I think that movie just kind of works a little bit better in every way. Not that it's like a dramatically better movie than Pacific Rim. It's just a better movie.
I agree with you. I'm voting for Mad Max. It is a better movie. I love Pacific Rim, but we're heading to Sweet 16, baby, and Mad Max belongs in the Sweet 16. We do have a comment from Cross who says, this is so upsetting. So sorry about that, Cross.
Yep.
The first one of the day, it is very upsetting.
I feel like it's just going to get even more so as time goes on.
I agree with that. What's next?
Star is Born. Fight Club, number 2 seed versus Stardust. Stardust is a delightful film. It's charming. I think anyone of all ages would enjoy it. But Fight Club, like, I was obsessed with it for a long time. I still think it's a genius movie. It's just an amazing piece of art. Going to Fight Club. Yeah.
I think had I approached this poll before doing our Deconstructing Fincher episode, I might have voted for Stardust because Fight Club was that annoying movie that annoyed me that people misunderstood. But really sitting down and analyzing that movie really unlocked its brilliance to me in a way that had never done before. And we had talked about that movie before on the podcast way back in the day. But the Deconstructing Fincher episode is one of my most fun episodes to record. And it really unlocked the movie, and it's great. And Fight Club all the way. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next up, we have Learning to Count, which sees our number 3 seed 7 versus our number 6 seed The Fifth Element. So The Fifth Element moved on, but now it has to tackle 7. So which is better, 7 or 5?
I think seven's got to take it, man. I mean, if remember, I think I said this last week. Like the last time I watched The Fifth Element, I was just like, ugh. No, it doesn't hold up as well as I thought it would. So not really that hard of a choice for me.
See, I hate this because I disagree with you about The Fifth Element.
Okay.
But I agree with you that in this particular matchup, 7 is just the better movie. But I mean, I wonder if I want to go crazy here because I don't want this to be like a bunch of Fincher movies and what, like 6, the Elite 8 is like 7 Fincher movies and then Mad Max. I don't want that to happen. So can I stop it here? I don't think I want to. Is the thing.
I think there's a big risk that it will just be a bunch of Fincher movies because Fincher is amazing, and also because we've covered so many Fincher movies disproportionately.
Sure.
But yeah,
I am gonna go 7 though. Okay. 7 is the right choice.
Yes,
it's a very, very good movie.
All right, next vote: Very Rude Aliens. We have Avengers Endgame versus Signs. I'm gonna go with you go first, Scott. I keep stealing the first slot. You tell me, what do you think?
I think I'm gonna shock myself and go with Avengers Endgame here, and I think the Sweet 16 feels right for Endgame as the conclusion of a 10-year long project that changed the landscape of cinema forever. I love Signs. I think Signs is a great movie. I do not think it's Shyamalan's best. I don't think it's in Shyamalan's top 2. So I'm okay. I'm like, knowing that there are other Shyamalan movies in this poll that I think are going to go on, I'm okay saying goodbye to Signs.
Okay, that's reasonable. I, however, am going to vote for Signs. Okay. I think I just like Signs. I would place Signs much higher in the ranking than you. I don't know why exactly. Maybe you could go back and listen to what I said about it, but I love Signs. I really, really love Signs. And, Avengers Endgame is really good. It's funny because I like Infinity War like a lot more than Endgame still.
That's interesting because I think I'm the opposite. I think I like Endgame more than Infinity War.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day we'll try to dissect that. I don't know why that is.
Yeah. I don't know if we've ever really talked about that, but that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I said Signs was not in my top 2, and I did that intentionally because it's in my top 3. So I mean, that I was just kind of just ending the range right before the movie would appear.
Sure.
So, Signs is a wonderful movie.
Yeah.
Next we have What a Twisted Web We Weave, which sees Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse up against the Fincher movie Gone Girl. Matt, what are you going to do here? Are you going for the upset?
I think, oh God, no, I'm probably not going to go with the upset. I really kind of want to, but kind of what you said earlier about there's already enough Fincher representation, and Gone Girl is not one of his best. And Spider-Verse is just a really charming and good movie that it's not like it's underrated. Everybody loves it, but it deserves that. So yeah, I'm going Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I am too. If I was deciding who won this thing, there's gonna eventually be a time where I'm gonna vote against Spider-Verse, but it's not yet.
Yeah,
it's not yet.
That is not this day.
No.
All right, Sweet Rides. We have Akira versus Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
This is one of those ones that you have to abstain from,
I
right?
have to abstain.
You haven't seen.
Yeah.
Okay, this is an easy one for me. It's Tarantino. I'm sorry, Akira. I understand your importance, but Tarantino. This is our only Tarantino movie on the poll. I can't believe that. It's the only Tarantino movie we've talked about on the show, and you weren't even there.
That is bizarre. Is that true?
Fix that.
Man, that's weird.
I mean, our very, I think like our 6th episode of the Daily Planet podcast was deconstructing Tarantino when we did them all in one episode. But I only pulled movies from Doofcast, not our previous show.
I also remember a time that you and Michael talked about The Hateful Eight, and I also couldn't take part in that because I hadn't seen that at the time.
I think that was that same conversation that you just jumped off.
Yeah.
And Michael and I continued to talk about The Hateful Eight,
Yeah,
which is on the Michael top 7, I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
is it top 6 or I don't remember. It's on the Michael top whatever.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure The Hateful Eight's on there.
Okay.
Next, we have Infinite Lives, which sees Live, Die, Repeat, aka The Edge of Tomorrow, against Unbreakable. I think this is the hardest one for me in this week's matchups.
Okay. It's actually not that hard for me. Unbreakable is it just for some reason it just doesn't click with me. In whatever way, Signs doesn't click with you. Unbreakable doesn't click with me. Whereas Edge of Tomorrow is just like a movie I could just watch like over and over again, basically. So that's my vote.
Okay, I'm voting for Unbreakable. Unbreakable
Okay.
is Shyamalan's second best film, and it's wonderful, and it makes me cry every time I watch it.
All right.
The moment where Bruce Willis slides the newspaper over on the kitchen table in front of his son, and his son looks at the newspaper and goes, "Is that you?" And he nods, and the kid starts crying. Breaks me. I am not unbreakable.
See, it's not bad, but it doesn't get me as much as Swing Away, Meryl. And everyone laughs at Swing Away, Meryl, and they think I'm ridiculous. But you know what? You're not going to change me.
I love Swing Away, Meryl, and maybe if those two movies were up against each other in a poll, we'd be having that conversation. But they're not.
So let's just move on to the next one, which is Whatever Happened, Happened, which is Primer or Primer, depending on whether you're English or American, versus Zodiac. What do you think?
I'm voting for Zodiac.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah. So am I. So am I.
It's Primer is a fun movie. I had a lot of fun watching and talking and like trying to piece that movie together with you. Zodiac is, I think it's Fincher's best film, and I think it's one of the best movies ever created. So that's not even difficult for me.
Primer is like, it's like, wow, it's amazing they were able to make this for $10,000, but it's not the best movie ever.
Yeah. Whereas Zodiac, it's like, wow, it's amazing that they were able to make this.
Period. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Next up, we have Red Pilled, which sees The Matrix take on Hellboy. So Hellboy, I think, knocked out The Matrix Reloaded. And so this is a grudge match, revenge fight. And I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I am voting for The Matrix.
Yeah, I mean, I think The Matrix may be my favorite movie. So yes, The Matrix.
I think we got that, judging by how the Dark City conversation went.
I want somebody to do a supercut of all the times that I've said The Matrix may be one of the best movies, if not the best movie ever made, across all of our episodes.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, next we have Marvelous, which is Who Framed Roger Rabbit versus Captain Marvel.
And
what
this
are you feeling? Is
the easiest one of the week for me. I still think I like Captain Marvel a good deal more than you do. And so but I do feel like second round just feels like the right place for that movie to go bye-bye.
Yeah.
So, especially since it's up against what we've called a perfect movie.
Correct.
So,
yes.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit, obviously.
I agree, obviously. Love that movie so much. Yep.
All right, Us versus Them. Starship Troopers takes on Jordan Peele's Us.
Oh, Now it's getting tough.
Yes, this is very hard. This is very, very difficult. I'm going to make you go first.
Man, okay. Can't just sit here and bloviate. Starship Troopers is where I'm leaning. Because I think that it is more ambitious in some ways. It is more complex in some ways, and it's also more fun, and it just works better on me. And I think I just like it more for ineffable reasons because my soul likes it, even if the chain of memories that led me to this moment may not be consistent with that.
Let me ask you a question. Is Us Jordan Peele's best film? Is Us better than Get Out?
I like them both a lot, but like Starship Troopers gets like space sci-fi points, but then also like being very successfully clever in meta points. It's just a genius movie. Like, God,
Yeah.
I mean, they're both genius movies, but they're different. They're different levels of genius. I really do think. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more certain I am of Starship Troopers for me.
I think I'm going to say Starship Troopers. And the reason I think I'm going to say Starship Troopers, at least the excuse I'm going to give myself, is I think I would call Get Out a more successful and more important movie than Us. And therefore I can rest easy knowing that the movie I killed wasn't Peele's best.
There you go.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. All right. Next, Be a Shoe. We have The Social Network versus Snowpiercer.
If you can't notice, in some of this week's matchups, I had trouble coming up with names and just threw something out there that doesn't make sense.
You know, I choose to see it as genius and avant-garde.
Okay, cool.
All right, what do you think on this one?
I'm voting for Social Network. I love so much of that movie.
Yeah.
And Snowpiercer, I still think I like it more than both you and Michael, which was so surprising to me. But I think The Social Network is just better. I think I would vote for Snowpiercer in just about any matchup on this thing, except for the one it happens to be in.
I agree. I'm going to vote for Social Network. Snowpiercer just kind of makes me sad. I have a hard time voting for a movie that makes me sad over a movie that I just like really enjoy.
All right. Well, I think I know where you're going to vote in one of our upcoming matchups then. But first, we have to get to Mostly Dead, which features number 1 seed The Princess Bride against Shyamalan's The Village. Princess Bride. You know, why waste time here and bloviate?
Yeah,
and it's Princess
Bride. Signs, genius movie. The Village. I really love The Village. It's not as good as
It's not The Princess Bride. Yeah.
All right. Fairy Tale versus Legend. We have Pan's Labyrinth versus The Chronicles of Riddick.
So one of these movies makes you sad.
Yeah, Pan's Labyrinth does make me sad, but it's also a heartbreaking work of staggering genius and possibly Del Toro's best film. Still haven't really settled down on that one actually. Whereas The Chronicles of Riddick is a silly movie. It's a silly movie that is very fun, but is not a great film. So,
okay.
Sorry to disappoint you, Scott. I'm voting for Pan's Labyrinth.
That's okay, because so am I. So that makes me happy. All right, next we have Oops, I Drowned, which sees The Prestige versus Shyamalan's Glass. So this is the spot that Speed Racer should be in right now. And I would happily vote for Speed Racer over The Prestige, and I would have no regrets about it. But here I am voting for The Prestige.
Yeah, I mean, we liked Glass. I did like Glass. I think I liked it a lot more than most people, but The Prestige... I loved Glass. Yeah. I loved that movie. It's so wild, and it's Shyamalan through and through. Yeah,
absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
The Prestige is very good though.
I did too. The Prestige is just, again, like there's so many good movies on this list. That's one of the top for me. Like it's one of the top movies. So yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the last matchup this week, Dead Boys. We have The Sixth Sense versus The Mist.
A really tough matchup for The Sixth Sense. Really tough one. But it deserves to win here, so I'm going to vote for it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's one of my favorites.
We got another comment from Cross here that says this whole bracket is so incredibly cruel. So he commented on the first one and complained and yelled at us, and the last one and yelled at us.
Probably a lot more exhausted by the time they got to the last one.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, to be fair, the cruelty is the point, as as some people say,
as some say. Oh dear.
So yeah, that's it. That is our votes for round 2. If you folks haven't already voted, please do so. You can go to doofmedia.com/doofmadness and vote in all 16 matchups. Voting will close this Sunday, March 14th at midnight Central Time. And then the Sweet 16 matches will be posted and you can move on to those. So it's getting exciting. We're getting down smaller and smaller each week. So please vote. It's very, very fun.
Yeah.
Doof.
All right, Matt, we got one more thing to do before we wrap up this episode for the week. And I think you know what it is.
It's WandaVision.
It's WandaVision. The show that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks wrapped up last Friday, and we've got a lot to say about it. So I want you, I have a lot of things I want to talk about here. But the first thing is, what did you think of the finale of WandaVision?
I liked it. I thought it worked. I did not have the negative reaction to the fact that it got big and superhero-y because I kind of knew that would happen. I felt like it maintained the emotional thread of what was important despite the superhero stuff, and even, integrated it in a way that felt right to me. And it made me emotional. It left, it leaves you with a sense of tragedy and sadness. And are we doing spoilers? Are we doing spoilers?
Yes, let's say spoilers for WandaVision. Yeah.
It is a tragedy. It's a tragic ending, right? It's very, like, I was wondering what direction they were going to go with it, but it's doesn't really give you an out there. And yeah, I don't know. That's all my feelings. Positive, quite positive. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think I liked it quite as much as you. The big Marvel battle stuff didn't work as well on me. I mean, I certainly enjoyed the Visions having a debate about the ship of Theseus. That's very wonderful.
Yeah.
I liked that. But the 5 minutes of them kind of just like shooting lasers at each other and punching each other that led up to that, I just could have done without. I think Agatha and Wanda floating in the air and shooting magic at each other just didn't land with me. But the emotional core of this episode and this entire series worked on me very, very well. I wept as Wanda said goodbye to her kids, put them to bed and said goodbye. And her final moments with Vision were just amazing. They just worked on me. Like, that was just working on me. It was doing everything it wanted to do. And it really, really nailed it. I think allowing Wanda to realize the consequences of her actions in this really interesting way, where like the entire town confronts her with the terrible, terrible things she's done, was great. I'm so glad the show left room for that.
Yeah.
And I really like that moment where they all like tell her and she's like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I'll take it down. And then she starts doing it. And of course it makes her family go away. And so she stops that. And that's such a powerful, important moment. I think the thing that I didn't like is I don't feel like they actually dramatized the moment where she decides that she has to do it anyway. Like, I feel like we got there, and again, the moments with Vision saying goodbye to Vision at the end was beautiful. It broke my heart. I don't think I felt like they skipped a moment where like she realizes it's the right thing to do. She starts to take it down. Her family goes away, so she stops and brings it back up, and then she defeats Agatha, and then it's just like, okay, so now I'm taking it down. And I feel like there was just a beat there where I would have liked. Like, I think part of what I was talking to my wife about was like, what if like she had expended so much energy to bring Vision to life that in order to defeat Agatha, she needed to take that back, and that's the choice she had to make. It would have removed that beautiful scene at the end, but it would have also meant like the dramatic choice to give up this stuff would have felt a little more dramatized to me.
Mm-hmm. I can't really disagree. I guess I just didn't feel the absence the way you did. I felt like everything about her choices was realistic, but I can't disagree that like, well, we could have used a bit more of a punch to sort of punch in that choice, that the moment of that choice. I feel like
the moment where she tells Agatha, I don't need someone to tell me who I am, is like supposed to be that moment, right? It's like supposed to be the moment where she has fully actualized herself and realized that she knows exactly what she needs to do. And like her defeating Agatha is supposed to be, symbolic of her recognizing that the right thing to do is to make them go away and to collapse this thing. Yeah, I just I don't know. I don't know. This
Yeah.
feels like quibbling, but
Yeah.
that was something that bugged me a little bit.
I guess,
but that's like it's in the end it's a small thing, because like I said, the dramatic stakes of it still really, really worked on me.
yeah, I mean, I think what I would say, like the reason that I would say I don't really care that much about that, despite in principle agreeing with you, is that I've come to see Elizabeth Olsen as like one of the best actors of our generation.
Oh my God, she's incredible.
She's incredible. And like in a sense, it's like we don't need that moment, because she portrays the subsequent suffering and conflict well enough where you're like, well, I might as well have seen it. Like, I believe it happened. Like, she is tracing the dramatic arc of this character through her performance. So if there are moments where you feel like you missed them, it's like, well, it doesn't matter, because I still believe her character. I still totally believe her character. It feels totally like you're feeling for her so much the whole time.
Totally fair. Yeah.
And that's yeah. So yeah, just on the whole, like, I don't think I even really noticed, the character of Scarlet Witch in the other movies very much, because those movies are so full.
Mm-hmm.
But here, like, giving her the spotlight and, like, literally focusing on her, like, almost exclusively, I'm just like, whoa, she can kind of do everything. This is really unique, actually. So
yeah, I mean, she's the most powerful of them all,
yeah,
and
apparently.
and then she has one of the best actresses ever working for her. Yeah, I mean, I am so happy that they gave her this room to really explore this character and the grief that she's going through. I mean, we didn't end up talking about episode 8 because we ran out of time last week, but that had all the interiority that I was waiting for this entire series. Like, it was this beautiful episode where we really just explore Wanda's grief in a direct way, and I loved it. I loved it to death. I still think I will never love the show as much as I did watching those first 2 episodes. Like, at the end of the day, I think this is a very good television show in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that's great. And I like the MCU quite a bit. I think after watching the first 2 episodes, I was like, oh, this is going to be something that's like all time, like, transcendent television. And it's not that. It's just a very good MCU thing. And that's fine. Like, it's just, I grabbed onto something I thought it might be at the beginning, because it's such a wild idea to start your show this way. And it has to go back to being the MCU thing eventually, because it is the MCU thing. And
Sure.
And like, I need to like recognize what I'm watching, and just being like, if I want like avant-garde experimental television, I'm not going to go to Disney. Like, I'm just not, and that's fine. I just need to level set my expectations.
Sure, and I don't feel like it betrayed the spirit of the earlier episodes or anything. It's just
it just was doing something more standard is wrong, because it's still like they still took a shot with the show, and I want to respect them for that.
And also, like, it is very, very complex. Like, I'm not usually one for like the YouTube videos that have the arrows on the thumbnail, and they tell you all the Easter eggs, but like the sort of I think this is one of those shows that kind of merits it, where like there's all these details in especially the first episodes where you're just hinting things, and it's like visual storytelling, just visual storytelling all over the place, even for things that you don't even register, because you don't know, it's foreshadowing. It's setting your feelings about a certain character in a certain way by portraying them a certain way on the screen, or even the stuff where it becomes evident later, like this is a magic show and there are no children. Why are there no children? I didn't even notice that, right? I didn't even notice that in that episode. Why are there's no children anywhere? What's going on? And that's just one of many, many, many things. And like, it gets so much credit for me for like, oh wow, like there's lots of people involved in this. They're all trying really hard, and it works really well. And yes, in the end, it turns into laser shooting. But when you interrupt your laser shooting with a a philosophical discourse on the ship of Theseus between two androids, you've won me all the way back over. So
yeah, I mean, that's like, I felt like I watched this saying, oh my God, Matt's gonna fucking love this. That's actually a very good transition to something I wanted to use this to as kind of a springboard to talk about something I've been thinking about more broadly, which is, to give it the clickbait headline, I think we're watching TV wrong.
uh-huh.
And I say we because I'm including myself in this. The reactions to this episode are put me back in the feeling of what it was like to be watching Lost as it comes to an end, right? There is this massive disappointment because there's not this complicated list of things that they were clearly setting up as mysteries that they didn't pay off in the final episode. Like, when Quicksilver showed up and the internet exploded with, oh my God, this is the introduction to the multiverse. No, it's not. It really has Monica, the new superhero, really has nothing to do here. She has that one superheroic moment and then nothing else. I think it's, I'm trying to wrap my head around this thing because for years I've been like moaning about the streaming model of television, the binge model where they drop every episode of a season and you just watch them all. And lately, the last couple of years, kind of led by Disney in some ways, we've kind of returned to this episodic storytelling structure where a new episode comes out once a week and then we talk about it and then we got to wait a whole another week for the next one to come out. And I think that's a better way of doing TV. I really do. But also it's brought back all these terrible things about this kind of storytelling in which we go crazy spending every minute analyzing the shit out of the shows and creating mysteries that they are surely intentionally creating and then expecting the show to solve it all to our satisfaction. And I just think we're ruining the show.
Yeah. Well, this has become even more clear to me since we started doing shows like We've Got Worm, where you basically proved, I think not only to me, but to a lot of people that like the way to make predictions about stories, meaning the way to understand what the stories are doing plot-wise, is to understand what they're doing theme-wise. If you understand what they're doing theme-wise, then you know what the author is thinking. You know where the author is, you know how they're thinking about this story, what they're wanting to do with this story, what their intent is, and that allows you to make guesses about what is going to happen with the plot. And you were very successful doing that, and we've sort of seen that like, oh, this is just a better way of thinking about stories anyway. And so when like the whole way of talking about these stories as if they're, puzzle boxes to be solved or mystery boxes, to borrow the J.J. Abrams sort of concept of like, oh, okay, so in this scene, there's this color, and that does that imply this thing about this kind of superhero is going to come in, and it's like, no, none of that ever, never. Yeah. Like that doesn't work. That's not real. Like that's that you're the crazy person with the cork board and the yarn. Yeah. That is not a productive or even really very fun way to think about these stories.
I think it's hurting our enjoyment of storytelling. Yeah. I think obviously this show is a mystery show, right? Like the structure of the show is that it starts out kind of throwing you into this world and you have no idea what's going on, and then over the course of time that mystery is unraveled for you. But I think we're spending so much time trying to solve the television show that we're not paying attention to the drama of the television show. And again, I'm not like chastising the way people view, because I'm putting myself in the same bucket. I listened to the podcast that broke all the shit down. I listened to all the theories. I listened to these out there theories about how Mephisto is going to be in this thing and Nightmare is going to be in this thing, and we're going to introduce the Fantastic Four, and it's going to be, this is the introduction of, and all these things that it's very obvious and very clear that this is what they're setting up. And no, the Quicksilver bit was literally just as you predicted the first time he appeared on screen. It was just supposed to be a joke. It was just supposed to be a funny joke that they needed someone to play Pietro, And so they said, wouldn't it be funny if we cast the guy that's in the X-Men movies? And I was listening to a podcast this last week that was talking about how that wasn't fair because, well, we know Wanda's going to be in the Doctor Strange movie that's about the multiverse. We know that Spider-Man 3 is going to deal with multiverse because they've cast the same guy who played Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2. We know this is going to be multiverse stuff, and then so you put this guy in, and then it's just a boner joke that just ends on a boner joke. And I'm like, yeah, like you can't judge a narrative based on casting news.
Yeah.
I think this is just wrong, and I don't want to do it anymore. I think I hurt my enjoyment of the show by paying as much close attention to this stuff. And yes, it's like fun. It's like fun to see the Easter eggs, right? Like just like you're saying, it's fun to see all the Easter eggs and the things that they've laid. And I love watching those videos and I love doing that analysis. The difference is, I think it's best to do that kind of stuff after the plot's done. Let it wash over you. Enjoy the thing and then dive into the fun Easter eggs and the super details that you missed and all that kind of stuff. And it's not to say we're not like, don't talk about the show. Like, the whole point of this weekly episodic thing is that you get to talk about the show. You get to think about the show. But I think we should be talking about the emotions and the themes and we're just stop trying to solve Lost.
Well,
stop. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to do it. And I don't think we should be doing it that way anymore.
I think critically, like not just trying to solve it, but then getting mad at the show when you're wrong.
Sure.
Because that's kind of the ubiquitous thing that you see is like, I was really disappointed is a phrase that you see all the time. And I'm just like, okay, then your expectations were wrong. I'm sorry. You're watching it wrong. You didn't understand what they were doing with this show. And maybe that's their fault, but I don't really think it's their fault because I wasn't disappointed because I knew what they were doing with the show because I was thinking about what are we doing with this? This is an exploration of this character's grief and coming to terms with that grief in some sense. In some sense, she ends the show not really having come to terms with her grief because we see her in the double post-credit scene seemingly still trying to retrieve her children.
Yeah, and will be. I mean, that's kind of how we think. I mean, there's interesting things because like this is getting into the nitty gritty, but we're told she's stronger than the Sorcerer Supreme, which is Doctor Strange. So like, is she going to be the villain in that movie, or is she going to be with Strange? Like, Doctor Strange, help me find my children.
I mean,
we don't know yet.
I sort of hope it's more complex than that, but we'll see, right?
Sure.
I mean, more complex than simple villainy.
I think you're right here. I think the important thing I'll say about expectations is the complex shit that you come up with in your head that connects all the dots is always going to be better than what you get on the screen because you don't have to actually do all the legwork in your head of making it all work and film and writing it and filming it. And it's always going to be better in your head because you don't have to, you can yada yada over all the stuff, the grueling pain in the ass moments of story construction to make all this stuff work that way.
Yeah. I mean, the sort of people who tend to do that, which I used to be very much like this, by the way, like when it came to the Wheel of Time, especially, like I would be on the message boards doing the theory crafting about the Wheel of Time. And I didn't even know the word theme. I didn't even understand that he was like doing something with that story. I was just like, okay, well, this character has this power and that means, and this magic object could be used in this way. And it's like, there's like the author's not thinking about it that way. And also if you did just build this elaborate plot Rube Goldberg machine, it would be very boring to execute. It would be very dry because everything has to be orchestrated through the characters and through their emotions and through their decisions. And it has to feel dramatic or you'll just hate it. You'll think, oh, that was disappointing. Even if it has all of the finicky plot shit that you love, it's going to be really boring if it's not actually character motivated. And so that's just one of the ways in which people, and like you said, I include my previous self in this. I think this is one of our like reasons why, like We've Got Ward was successful, I feel, is because we weren't doing that with this feeling of like, okay, we're gonna we're gonna like have an expectation of what that story is going to be, and then we're going to be disappointed if it doesn't serve that. It was more like we're following the trail of the story, and if like we can have an interpretation of what it's doing, but if it zigs when we think it's going to zag, then we're not like, oh, Wildbow screwed up. Like never, the thought never crossed my mind. It was just like, oh, okay, I must have misunderstood what we were doing here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I don't think we're going to do a thing like we did with Ward again.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I don't think we're going to follow along with the story in that kind of detail live again. And I don't want to do that with any stories. I don't want to do that with TV shows. Like, I think, you know, you and I having the 15-minute conversations every week about what we thought of the latest episode, I think is not the same as, you know, detailed, ridiculous analysis. I don't want to do that live with stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I like our format of one person is leading the other person. Even that, I think, does in some ways blunt your enjoyment of the thing. Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think you really enjoy it, but you enjoy it differently than you would if you were just absorbing it.
Yes, I mean I think I definitely enjoyed Ward way more deeply on an intellectual level than I would have, but probably less on an emotional level, because I wasn't the character was something I spent too much time thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I just want to acknowledge that I totally recognize the irony of me saying this while our most successful podcasts have been doing the thing we're talking about here, and I mean, yes, they have been kind of, and also I want to just recognize that like I take part in this every week, like with so many shows, and I just don't think I'm going to do it anymore. Like Falcon and the Winter Soldier is starting up in a couple weeks. The podcast I listen to for WandaVision is going to do the same thing for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I am going to choose not to listen to that. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, and it's going to be a totally different show. It's not going to be the kind of solve the mystery type show where every background piece could mean something. I just don't feel like it's going to be that kind of show. But I still think there are going to be people that do that with that show, and I want us to approach TV differently. I really do. I want us to stop doing this thing that we do. I mean, we did it with Game of Thrones too. Like, right? I mean, like, which is not to say Game of Thrones was the last season was a particular good season. It was not, and I don't think like not overanalyzing it to death would have suddenly made it better than it was. Like, made it good. I don't think it would have. But it's just like this constant need to dissect every minute detail to get a clear picture of what's happening next. Just like enjoy the thing.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the thing. Well, like I think that the thing is we should not be focusing on what happened in this episode to learn what it says about next episode. We should be focusing about what happened in this episode to learn about what it said. What is it saying?
Right. Well, they're not going to stop making these because they get clicks. And I mean, that's the genius of Red Letter Media's Nerd Crew. is pointing out the hollowness of watching things this way, where you're like, I can't wait for the next Star Wars movie so that it can tell me what to be excited about for the next Star Wars movie after that. Like you're never actually just enjoying anything. You're squeezing it for like, it's weird, and I do avoid it. Like the only reason I only watched a couple of the movies of the YouTubes about WandaVision because I don't know, I'd read something about like a particular interpretation and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. But like that's not the same thing as like, let's go through all 237 Easter eggs in this episode. I'm like, no. I don't care about Easter eggs. I care if there is an interesting interpretation that relies on textual evidence that I didn't notice. That's not the same thing as let's just rotely crunch through all of the Easter eggs.
Yeah. I mean, I think to be totally fair to viewers and people doing this, I do think these companies do invite this kind of stuff. Like, I think Disney's model with this MCU stuff is that they want everyone always looking forward to the next thing. They want to build this feeling that this is all building to the next thing, building to the next thing, building to the next thing. And there are parts of WandaVision that is very much that. I think at the end of the day, the Monica Rambeau stuff felt very much Thor in Ultron, where it just had nothing to do with the actual thing that was going on. It just was for the next thing.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you can kind of, obviously Monica is supposed to reflect Wanda in important ways where they're both grieving for people they lost, and she's an example of the right thing to do. I get that, but like everything else that was going on with her outside of that was completely tangential to it. Like her gaining of powers is literally just to get you excited for the next thing.
Right.
It has no meaning within the story itself.
It certainly doesn't connect to the fact that she's grieving.
Yes.
And I didn't love stuff like that, but there was enough to love in the show that it didn't bother me.
Yeah. I mean, that's my point here, was just that Disney knows what they're doing here, and it's this perpetual hype machine, and so everything is going to, and people, when they dissect this stuff, are just feeding into that. Like, I think they did put a lot of Easter eggs into these shows, and they did put a lot of red herrings that made it seem like it was certain things, but wasn't. They did that, and people were picking up on that. But just like, I think they were a little shocked at the animosity when that wasn't going anywhere. And I think we need to get over that. I think we need to just stop watching TV this way.
Yeah, I definitely will, and I think to a great extent have done so.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do that for The Mandalorian, and I enjoyed The Mandalorian a whole lot. And I wonder, had I dove into that stuff in The Mandalorian, how my feelings about it would have changed.
Right. I mean, the stuff in The Mandalorian that does the sort of fan servicey nod stuff is like my least favorite parts.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of always going to be true for me from here on. They're not going to stop doing it. It's obvious why they're doing it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to engage with that aspect of it.
Yep. Stop trying to solve TV.
Yes.
Stop it.
Yes.
And Westworld, stop existing, because you exist so people can try to solve you.
Does it still exist?
I think they did a third season last year. I don't know. I bowed out. I watched the first season, and I watched 10 minutes of season 2, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to do this. And I bowed out. I mean, they've said on the record that they write this show for Reddit. Like, they write it for the Reddit threads that dissect it. And so it's like written to where you can only understand it if you spend that time to do that.
Please kill me.
Yeah, exactly. That's not for me. And look, if you like doing that, go for it. I would never chase your bliss, do whatever you want. This is just my argument. I think it's hurting the way we watch TV.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Cool. So I got that off my chest. At the end of the day, really loved WandaVision. I'm going to be enjoying Falcon and the Winter Soldier as well.
Yep, me too.
And maybe we'll talk about that a little bit on the show.
I bet we will.
All right, folks, that is all we had for you this week. If you have any opinions on Dark City, on WandaVision, or on any of the things we discussed in the Doof Madness Round 2 vote, you can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com, or on Twitter @doofmedia, or on our subreddit r/doofmedia, and you can let us know. Hey, we also have an Instagram account. I never say that, but we have one, and I've actually started putting things on there. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, you can follow us at Doofmedia on Instagram. Yay.
Yeah. Instagram, that's a platform that
it is.
I don't even think I have.
You don't, because I tried to tag you in something from the Doof Media account, and I said, there is no Matt Freeman.
Yeah. No, I that's my last holdout, man. All right. If you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to subscribe and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And of course, you can find this and all of our shows over at doofmedia.com. That's where you can find, we got so many shows. You can find Pale Reflections. We talked about Ward and Worm a lot, and Elliot and Ruben are going through Pale. But, despite what we said a few minutes ago, I think they're doing it the right way. I think they're doing it the way that is focusing on theming and not just trying to solve the puzzle.
Right. I mean,
they are having some fun solving the puzzle. It is a mystery story, but
I just think the way Wildbow writes, you can't help. But we have the thing about a book teaches you how to read it, and I think Wildbow teaches you how to read his stories, and so it's hard to read them wrong.
Yes, so check out Pale Reflections and, of course, any of the other shows we do over at our website, doofmedia.com. And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. If you donate to us at the Council of Doof level, you can help decide what movies we talk about. Are you upset that we haven't talked about a movie that you love? You can make that happen. So just head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and find out how.
That's right. Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts, because each review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the stuff we're doing here.
That's right, folks. That is all we had for you today. We'll be back next week with a new episode. I don't know what it's about because I planned all the episodes up until my son's birth, and that's going to be any day now. So it's just going to be an episode.
Yep.
We'll figure it out.
We'll see. We'll
see you next week.
Bye-bye.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.